can prepare you for the drama of this launch. The Cassini rocket, a testament to the massive effort involved in this undertaking. Cassini is the most ambitious space mission ever sent to another planet. The 18-story high rocket roared into the Florida sky. Huge booster rockets fell away as the probe gathered speed, and Cassini entered space just east of Cuba. As it passed over Africa, the rocket fired for one last time.
We have confirmation of Centaur and SV separation.
That's it.
I was awestruck, absolutely. At one point, I was almost frightened by the fury of it all, but the majesty of it, I just never expected it to be so majestic and graceful, and it just, you know, slowly disappeared from sight, and I just felt like there it goes.
My heart really skipped a beat when they lit those solids. And then again, when the announcer said, Cassini has left the planet, and indeed we have.
British scientists also breathed a heavy sigh of relief. They hope to parachute a probe onto the surface of a moon called Titan.
The surface of Titan is the largest unexplored piece of real estate in the solar system. It's still pretty much of a mystery. The sort of primitive atmosphere, which has some similarities to our own Earth's primitive atmosphere, has really been preserved. So we're seeing some of the conditions that existed here on Earth preserved in deep freeze on Titan. So really, if we want to study something about our own origins, the very early history of our own Earth, we can't stay here. We have to go to somewhere like Titan.
Cassini will arrive in the Saturnian system at 24 minutes past 8 British time on the morning of Thursday, July the 1st, 2004. Leo Enright, BBC News, Cape Canaveral.
Back on Earth, unemployment is at its lowest level for 17 years. Figures show that in September, nearly 1.47 million people were out of work. That's 27,800 fewer than in August. The fall was mainly due to a sharp drop in the number of unemployed men.
The rebuilding of the heart of Sheffield, a joint project between local businesses and the City Council. It's part of the recent revival in construction jobs that's reversed years of sharp decline.
There's more money coming into the industry, so it means more jobs, more projects taking off, so there's less people going onto the dole.
It's helping boost male employment in a region where the demise of traditional industries, such as steel, had left many men with little hope of finding full-time jobs. The redundant male is now part of popular culture. I believe in miracles. The film The Full Monty followed a group of unemployed Sheffield steelworkers as they conjured up ways of earning money. While men have been losing full-time jobs, many women have been finding part-time work in industries such as retailing, but that now seems to be changing. Since the beginning of the recovery 5 years ago, most of the increase in employment has been women working part-time. But since last year, the number of part-time women has levelled off. In contrast, the number of men employed full-time hardly rose in the first part of the recovery, but in the last year, it has increased dramatically.
What we've seen as the economy has gathered pace is that employers have gained more confidence about their long-run prospects, whereas at the beginning of the recovery they tended to create mostly part-time and temporary employment opportunities. Now they're offering more permanent and full-time opportunities. This has benefited men rather than women.
Despite the recent rise in construction jobs, today's figures suggest employment in manufacturing may be falling, possibly a result of the strong pound. The recent revival in male employment may yet prove short-lived. Anthony Brown, BBC News.
There's been mutiny aboard a cargo ship in the Channel. The Lebanese crew of the 9,500-ton car transporter O'Shea Express have taken over the vessel in a dispute over the southeast of England was hit by the Great Storm. One of the strongest winds ever recorded caused death and devastation across a huge area, and the landscape was altered forever. Today, some conservationists say it was a watershed that taught useful lessons about how to manage the countryside.
There's not been a storm like this in the south coast counties for as long as anyone can.
The fire brigade, and they all arrived in
fallen trees on many railway lines. The commuter traffic to the city was bad.
The sight and sounds of the storm of the century. 10 years ago tonight, southern England shook, and much of it gave way. Weather forecasters here famously failed to predict its ferocity, a mistake not made on the other side of the Channel.
Des nuages partout, des nuages et de la pluie. Dépression se situe actuellement au sud de l'Angleterre. Donc attention, une tempête qui pourrait faire de gros dégâts matériels.
In Britain, 19 people lost their lives. It cost the insurance industry £1.5 billion. 16 million trees were flattened. This one garden alone lost 1,500 trees in the Great Storm, but it's replanted another 10,000 to make up for it. Gardens, forests and parks like it across the south have been transformed in the last decade. The world-recognised garden is at Wisley in Surrey. 10 years on, much of its 250 acres are still being replanted. But for many, the Great Storm is now seen as a watershed, providing as many opportunities as problems.
16th of October 1987 will be etched on a lot of people's minds, simply because it blew away a lot of their old plant friends from their gardens. And very unfortunate, but it enabled them to look at tree management, I think, very much more effectively today than they used to 10 years on.
The climatic conditions which conspired to batter southern Britain 10 years ago tonight were the worst in 300 years. Nature and humans have done much since to restore the old, a new landscape literally resculpted by hand and wind. Duncan Kennedy, BBC News in Surrey.
And the main news again tonight. There's more controversy concerning the Queen's trip to India. A speech she was due to make in Madras tomorrow has been cancelled. Indian officials say there's been no snub to the Queen. And we've just heard that the British jet-powered car Thrust has broken its own land speed record, breaking the sound barrier at the same time. The next national news is at 9 o'clock.
But from the 6 o'clock team, good evening.
Good evening.
And the business strategy behind the closure, but personally, I'm gutted. He's one of 650 workers who'll lose their jobs. In a moment, I'll be asking if Luton Council can do anything to help. But first, we look at the impact on those directly affected by the closure. Mohammed Kurban has spent his working life at Electrolux. He says they've been a good 21 years. The closure has shocked him.
Devastated. Absolutely tragedy and devastated. I was completely shocked when I heard yesterday when we've been called in. I was still in shock. I couldn't believe it. I honestly still couldn't believe it that the firm is going to close down.
Electrolux has been building vacuum cleaners in Luton since 1926, but its Swedish owners have decided in a cutthroat market the factory is no longer profitable.
They've only got to look at the domestic appliances that they have in their own home, in their kitchen or in their lounge. They'll see familiar brands, they'll see familiar products, and they'll turn them over and find that they're made in unfamiliar places. And I think that's globalisation, and that's, I think, the reality, and that's what people understand.
That has angered the unions who felt they'd put together an acceptable survival plan.
I think we've got to work very hard to try to find new jobs for those who need new jobs. I'm in touch with the local authority, the employment service. I should be speaking to Margaret Beckett as well to see what can be done nationally if we can get anything done at all. It's going to be very, very hard, and we've already got